I just feel like it's not good for humans to eat other humans. And the winner is, hold for applause. Hey, it's Jamie. Thanks for stopping by, and I have a little confession for you. I had a little reading goal going into the year of 2025 that I didn't quite reach. But this is the first year in a very, very long time, as in the entirety of my adult life, where the books I've read for that year require more than one hand to count, and to be honest, more than 3 fingers. Because I read, little drum roll please, 31 books throughout 2025. Yay! I know my book count up here says 2, but that is my counter for 2026 so far. I'm filming this as of the 8th of January, if you were interested in how many I've read in a set amount of time. So last year I was going for 50 books to read in the year, but I didn't really get serious about actually trying to read more properly until partway through the year. So 50 was a little bit ambitious, but a guy can dream. The second half of 2025 though was the time when I truly fell back in love and got back in the groove of reading on a regular basis and successfully fully got back into reading, and I'm very, very proud of myself for the 31 books that I did read. And I really don't feel bad about not hitting my goal of 50. It was kind of an arbitrary number because it sounded good. For me, it's more about enjoying the books that I do read, reading the books I want to read, and then being able to absorb them and sit with them for a minute after I've read them, rather than trying to read the most amount of books humanly possible for the year, or humanly possible for me in the year. It's more about enjoying the books that I do read. And honestly, getting into the book side of the internet, I found it incredibly daunting and overwhelming, especially these yearly reflections, from the number of books that people have read, to the types of books they read, to the types of analyses they do on those books. I felt like it was kind of inaccessible for me, and I often came away feeling like I'm not a real reader, which is why I wanted to share about the books I read for the past year, because I don't think there is one true way to be a real reader, and I want to encourage people to reconnect with reading in whatever way feels right to them. It doesn't have to be reading the classics or all of the shortlisted books for the prizes of that year, but equally it can look like that. It can look like reading 1 book a year or 100 books a year, or more than 100 books a year if you're very fast. It's whatever works for you. So let me know what was on your reading list last year, or if you have any reading goals for 2026. And meanwhile, this is how today's video is going to go. I'm going to give you a run through of all the books I read in 2025, yes, all 31 of them, give you 3 words as a very, very quick elevator pitch, and then a little summary and what I thought of them. And then you are all cordially invited to the annual Jamie Rains Book Awards, where I will be giving out the very coveted but totally fictional awards. The biggest surprise of the year, the biggest disappointment of the year, the one that made me cry most in 2025, and the most coveted of all, my best read of 2025. So buckle up, here are my 2025 reads in order of when I read them. You may have noticed this little pile sneaking into view. This is the pile of books that I still have or have had physical copies of, because some of them were not physical copy books and some of them I don't have anymore, but if I do have them, I will be showing them to you. And that's what this pile is. It's very tall and very wobbly, because I put them in order of when I want to show them, but some of the smaller books are on the bottom. Actually, the smallest books, the smallest little paperbacks are on the bottom. It's very precarious. Anyway, first up is Wranglestone by Darren Charlton. My 3 words would be gay, zombies, beautiful. Don't really go together. Gay romance meets zombie apocalypse, where the zombies have a bit of a twist. There's a community surviving on a lake, but winter is coming and the lake is gonna freeze, and so the dead are on their way. Honestly loved it. Gay, zombies, but not gay zombies. Well, honestly brilliant. Zombies apocalypse, one of my favourite things to read and watch, to be honest, just one of my favourite genres generally when it comes to media, and sprinkling some queer rap in there only makes it better. I found it well paced, and for me, Charlton does an amazing job at painting a beautiful picture. Like, the scenery in my head, stunning. Take away the undead and I would have wanted to visit Wranglestone for a picturesque holiday. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It is very good, but it's not quite god tier. Oh, and I just threw it. Are you okay? I'm sorry. Next up is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, and I have this beautiful Folio Society edition. Folio Society books are my absolute favourite. I just have a thing for beautiful books, okay? And they all have illustrations in, like this.
Wow.
Just stunning, okay? If you love books and you don't have a folio book yet, why not? What you doing? My 3 words for I Am Legend: creepy, frustrating, and atmospheric. So it's about a dude who thinks he's the last human alive whilst everybody else has either died or become some vampiric creature that is out to stalk and kill him. Again, apocalypse, so loved it, but this time your blood is at risk, not your brains, because they're vampires. I did not like the protagonist, but that doesn't mean I didn't like the book. You can hate hate the protagonist and love the book. Robert Neville, just not my kind of guy. Don't want to hang out with him. Don't really want to be anywhere near him. Even if we were the last two humans alive, I think I would leave him alone. Mostly because of the misogyny and the objectifying of women, but he's also just so miserable. So miserable. I get it. The world's ended. You're lonely. But come on, dude.
Come on, man.
Saying that, I really enjoyed the read. The sense of isolation really comes across. I felt that loneliness whilst reading it. Obviously not as lonely as Robert Neville clearly felt, but still, it did a great job of immersing me in the story. And it is a bit of a classic that's had a big impact on culture within this kind of genre. I did give it 5 stars. I surprised myself, and I loved the book despite hating the protagonist. Very interesting. My third book of the year was Agatha Christie's Sparkling Cyanide. Again, another beautiful folio copy. I have a few folio Agatha Christie's. There'll be another one on this list later, and I have a couple on the shelf somewhere, one that I've read, one that I haven't. 3 words for Sparkling Cyanide: suspenseful, murder, twisty. 6 people are at a dinner table when last year there were 7. Ooh, 'cause she died. Rosemary was murdered, but by whom? And how did they manage to do it? Scandalous. I do love a bit of Agatha Christie, and murder mystery as a genre is just underneath zombie/apocalypse for me. It is right up there in my favourites. This was not my favourite murder mystery read, nor my favourite Agatha Christie, but I really love the setup and how it all came together in the end. Like an overly complex bread loaf that actually comes out the oven golden brown and bouncy. I gave it 4 stars. Great, but again, not my favourite Agatha Christie. Next up is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. 3 words: holy shit. A dual storyline about a missing teenager, lost memories, and who is to blame for the disappearance. Honestly, there was nothing I wanted more from this book. It was perfection. Absolutely no notes. 0. Loved it. Megan Lally has become one of my favourite authors, and she has only published 2 books so far. Her third is coming out very soon. I don't know if it's out in other countries. It's not out yet in the UK. I have it on pre-order, and I had it on pre-order for ages, and I'm getting a little bit desperate. Seriously though, if you like thrillers, please read this book right now.
Trust me, Stanley, you're going to want to read this.
Call in sick to work, stop cooking dinner, just stop whatever you're doing and get this book and read it. Unless your cat is sitting on you, then of course it can wait. It must wait. This had my heart racing, it made me cry, it made me feel angry, and it had me hooked like a fish from the very beginning. Obviously 5 out of 5 stars, and I would give it 6 if I could. I can. 6 stars. Then I read All That's Left in the World by Erik J. Brown. My 3 words would be tricky, then good. Another queer post-apocalyptic story. Yes, I have a type. But this time it's not zombies, it's some kind of virus that has wiped out a majority of humanity, making COVID look as tame as a common cold. 2 boys travel America together, and along the way they find love and trust in each other, as well as seeing some of the worst in humanity. It's gotta happen in an apocalypse, right? I'm not gonna lie, a friend recommended this to me, and when I started reading it the first time, I was really questioning their taste because I just could not get into it. I was not gelling with the style. But with some gentle encouragement from my wife, I did give it another go. And once I got past the first few chapters, it did start getting better for me, and I got into it, and I did feel guilty for my earlier rash judgment. I love the story, but I just didn't click with the writing, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. You may notice throughout this video, I am quite generous with my stars. I don't like being mean. Next up, and it's the first book that I don't have the physical copy of anymore, and it is Manhunt by Gretchen Felker-Martin. 3 words for Manhunt. Kinda gross. It follows trans women in a post-apocalyptic world where too much testosterone turns you into some feral, horrible beast. Beast? I was going to say being, but beast is better. So all cis men are trans people on testosterone, and AMAB trans people who haven't suppressed their testosterone. In the book, testosterone is the root of all evil, basically. Personally, I did not enjoy this book, and I was really disappointed that I didn't, because it sounded like something I should love. On paper, it was just my type. Fave genre, trans inclusion, and blatant JK Rowling hate, but it was just not my vibe at all. It was honestly the horniest apocalyptic book I'd ever read. Why was everybody getting jiggy with each other all the time? I'm just not into descriptions of how grimy and sweaty and unshowered everybody is and how gross everything is, and then they're just going at it. I'm not for me. And it also just seems so impractical. Couples have kids and barely have time to get it on anymore, so I found it difficult to believe that in this very high stress, survival, apocalyptic world where people were being hunted by murderous feral men, that they all had time to get it on that much. I would also find the setting just a little bit of a turn off. you know? I do feel that there was a point to it all, but it obviously completely bypassed me, and I just didn't gel well with the style or the contents of the book. This was a 2 out of 5 stars, just not for me. And honestly, it was whilst planning this video that I realised I gave out a lot of 4 and 5 stars last year. I think I probably need to get more comfortable rating things lower, because it's not a comment on the author or their ability, it's just a comment on how I felt about the book personally.
Exactly.
One person's 1 star is another person's 5. Then we have No Place Left to Hide, Megan Lally's second book. Oh yes. Wow, the ending. That's my 3 words. It's about the unraveling of a secret after an unspoken incident. And it makes somebody's life fall apart. A lot of secrets in that hair, truly.
That's why her hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
Now, if I'm being really honest with myself and with all of you, I did not love this one as much as I loved the first one. But it was still absolutely fantastic, and it may have actually been a 5 star if I didn't have the first one to compare it to. Megan Lally is clearly incredible at creating stories that get your heart racing and just have your mind all over the place, and have totally devastating and unexpected endings, which, as much as they frustrate and make me cry, I love them. I will say that despite my 3 words being wow, that ending, and the ending really smacking me in the face like a big football, I'm not that good at predicting what goes on, so this is very subjective to me. Objectively, it may be quite easy to predict, but for me, it was not. Anyway, 4 out of 5 stars, but closer to a 4.5, and I honestly cannot wait for March when her 3rd one arrives. Then we have Murder at Mount Fuji. Look at how beautiful this cover is. I love it so much. Just the colours, and it's so pretty. It's hard to read. It's one of those difficult to read ones because I don't crack the spine, so I do read it like this. Yeah. Pretty writing, mysterious. There we go. So I believe it's set in the 80s, and it's about a powerful Japanese family that begins to unravel after the head of the family is murdered in his own home. How rude. At first it seems easy enough to figure out what happened, but not everything is as it seems. I've never read a murder mystery where somebody almost instantly confesses. This one had me truly befuddled for most of the book. Even when I thought I was getting somewhere, it then turned out no, I really wasn't. But like I said, I am bad at predicting the ending. Even though I love a murder mystery, I'm very, very bad at figuring them out. Proof that you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. As in, I'm bad at solving murder mysteries, not bad at murder. Although I've never tried, I could turn out to be really good at murder, but I will never know because I do not plan on ever murdering somebody. Unlike the person in this book. The murder was committed.
Gasp.
I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it, and I liked how the dynamics of the family played a part, and the cultural elements, and just how it all came together. Next up, Doctor Who Rose by Russell T Davies. A classic adapted. That's my 3 words. It's basically a book adaptation with really beautiful illustrations, and of course I open it onto a page that has no illustrations. Bear with. But here, look, isn't that so? If you've watched the episode, this will be a very iconic, memorable scene. Yeah, it's an adaptation of the first episode of the Doctor Who reboot, Rose, with Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper. I love Doctor Who. This was not a hard sell for me to buy. It was super fun to read a version of the episode, and the illustrations by Robert Hack really brought it to life and gave it this extra dimension that just made it so beautiful and right up my street. I would like more of these from other iconic episodes, specifically David Tennant, please and thank you, because he is the best Doctor Who, and I will not be swayed on that fact. I gave this 4 out of 5. Then we have Home by Caileen Steed. My 3 words for Home: creepy cult vibes. It had a cult, it had queer rep, it was suspenseful, and is a story about somebody who grows up in an absolutely batshit cult with stricter gender norms than the far right, and how she eventually gets away from the cult only to be drawn back in years later. Rule number 1, never go back into a cult that you have escaped from for any reason whatsoever. No, do not do it. I did like this book, and with the themes of like cult and LGBT plus rep and gender conversations and stuff like that, I was very excited, and I had high expectations that were just not quite met. It was like meeting your fave celebrity, but then they give you a really weak handshake. I needed more. It was a bit of a letdown. It kind of more tiptoed around topics of gender and transness, in my opinion, and sometimes the writing felt a bit clunky, like when I tried to envisage what was being described, like a scene of conflict or something, it all just became a bit of a mess in my head because that's how the writing came across to me. So I did give it 3 stars. Next up, I read Timberdark by Darren Charlton. It's the sequel to Wranglestone, and in 3 words, potential, but no. It followed directly on from a twist that's at the end of Wranglestone, so I won't go into it too much to not give it away, because whatever I think of the sequel, I still think Wranglestone is very worth reading, and I still think the twist is great, but the way it carried on through this book was not my vibe. I was so excited as well because there was something so like mesmerizing about Wranglestone and the way it was written, but my balloon tone was well and truly popped and then stamped on, and I was just disappointed. I know it's YA, but the characters just felt whingy and childish in a way they hadn't been in the first book, and I was honestly just shouting at them to speak to each other. This entire book could have been 3 paragraphs with at least semi-decent communication. I read 400 pages of frustration that could have been solved with a little chat. There are zombies, my guys. Get your priorities straight.
Because they're zombies.
2 stars. I do feel bad about it, but 2. Next, I read Loverbirds by Leon Egan. 3 words: gay and cute. Yeah, it's a gay enemies to lovers kind of vibe set in Liverpool in the UK, and really not my normal vibe. The 3 genres I'm least likely to read are sci-fi, fantasy, and just straight up like romancy type books, even queer romancy books. If the romance is part of a bigger story, like an apocalypse, then I'm all there. But if the book is mostly about the romance, then I tend to avoid. But I wanted to give this one a go. And I really was pleasantly surprised, like when I tried pistachio cream for the first time. The enemies to lovers storyline did feel a bit drawn out for me. It was kind of obvious what was going to happen, so after like the 5th time of will they won't they, it did get a bit frustrating. But saying that, it did get on a life raft and save itself just in time so that it didn't get entirely frustrating. It was funny, sweet, and the exact kind of book that my closeted butt would have been all over when I was a teenager, so I gave it 4 stars. Then there's 2 in a row where I don't have the physical book anymore. The next one is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. The 3 words for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder: strong plot plus characters. A college student, as in UK college, so I guess like last 2 years of high school, sets out to solve a cold case murder/disappearance that everybody in the local town thinks is solved, but is it? She thinks there's more going on. Firstly, as an introvert who hates making phone calls and speaking to strangers and confrontation of any kind, I was fully in awe of Pip's confidence and audacity at doing all of the above throughout the book, and I would love just a little bit of whatever she's got going on. I desperately need it. This book is my cup of tea. Talking of tea, I recently found out that I really like chai tea. I like vanilla chai and I like masala chai. So this is the masala chai of the book world for me. It's not a spicy book though, just to clarify. I really like the use of interviews and evidence logs that broke up just the standard narrative of the book. I didn't figure out the reveal, but as we have well established, that is not surprising and does not really say anything objectively about whether most people would be able to figure it out. I did figure out a couple little details, but not the main thing, so I was surprised. There were many moments where I found myself desperately turning the page. I could not put this one down, and I was turning the pages as fast as my want to not crack the spines would let me. It is a skill, by the way, but totally up my street in terms of storyline and writing. I gave it a 5. I did. Next up, another beautiful little folio book, The Postman Always Rings Twice by James M. Cain. In 3 words, Bonnie and Clyde-esque. But it fails. Gave me that vibe. I don't know if I'm saying the right thing. Anyway, acting on impulse and digging yourself into a deeper and deeper hole and everything just going to shit is kind of how I would describe this book. It's set in the 1930s in a remote roadside diner in California, and it is very messy and fast-paced, and I didn't realize so much could go wrong in such a small book. Like, it's quite a thin book, but a lot happens. I was intrigued by this one. It's a bit different to what I'd normally read, even though it's kind of in the genre of what I like to read. It's a little bit older than what I would typically read, and I was worried that like the writing style might be quite different. I might struggle to follow it, which I found in the past with older books, but I think I got this one. I found it frustrating, but in an enjoyable way, I think. It's one of those books where nobody's likable, but I still liked reading it. I was almost hate reading it by the end, but not because of the story or the book, just the people. Oh my god. I gave it 4 stars. Then next I have In the Blink of an Eye by Joe Callaghn. In 3 words, cop meets AI. Ooh. And the ooh doesn't count as a word, it's a noise. A cop who trusts their instincts implicitly is paired up with an AI machine to solve cold cases together. Not a match made in heaven, but to try and see if they can work together, they open up some old cold cases. But are they freezing cold? Dun, dun, dun. Another one that I liked more than I thought I would. It did take me a minute to get into. It wouldn't be the typical kind of book I'd pick up and read, but I was lent it by somebody who was like, you should read this, and I was like, okay, and then it was good, and I was like, oh, I liked it. But it did take me a while to click with the characters at first, because you know when they're just a bit meh? Like, I don't want meh. I'd rather hate the characters than feel meh about the characters. But then gradually I did get into it, and it got very good. The mystery got me, and it ended up being a real page turner, and I wanted to find out what happened, and I liked the way it all came together. And I also liked the inclusion of AI and how that was discussed. It was basically like looking at a lot of the pitfalls that could happen with AI and saying, hey, it could be used as a tool, but it's not gonna take over the role of solving crimes entirely. We need that human instinct. So I like that. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. And the next one is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It's kind of like if you've watched The Knives Out Glass Onion, it's kind of like that. This is another beautiful folio society edition. I am a little bit obsessed, not gonna lie. Absolutely confusingly great would be my 3 words. 10 strangers are summoned to the same island to be together. What could possibly go wrong? Well, they start being murdered one by one. But who's doing it? Oh my goodness. I guess I didn't find the ending quite as twisty and shocking as I thought I would, given that it's an Agatha Christie, but I think that's just because I had really high expectations. There was a little bit in the middle where I was like, am I bored? Maybe. It took me to the brink of that boredom and then pulled me right back in and it got really good. And I was like, oh no, actually that was kind of cool, like this difference in pacing and not just being like at 100 the whole time. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars, but it's honestly probably more a 4.5, but I have rounded up to 5 because it's like 4.51, whereas some of them are 4.49. You know, you've got to keep that maths accurate for rounding. The next one was the second in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, Good Girl, Bad Blood. In 3 words, a solid sequel. I don't know if I'm doing this 3 words right. Sometimes it will be 3 random words, like 3 adjectives, and other times it will be an actual full-on tiny sentence. In this one, a friend disappears, and the search for him begins to unravel deeper and darker secrets, and it becomes a lot bigger than just this missing friend. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as fantastic to me as the first installment. It was on that cusp of pushing things too far, but it kept it like right on that edge, and I respected that because it felt fast-paced and intriguing without being absolutely bananas. It did make me think that, wow, a lot of shit goes down in such a small town, but all the threads came together in the end, and I was like, that's a solid read. I like that, so I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Oh Sister by Jodie Chapman. My 3 words for this: like deep, profound, thought-provoking. This follows 3 women who are all connected to the same church in some way, and I believe the church in the book is based off of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it explores how religion can have and keep on having a devastating grip on people's lives. This book broke my heart last year. Oh my god, I cried so much reading this. I don't know why, it just got me. Sometimes they were tears on the happy side of things, but mostly they were tears on the sad and the frustration and like just the despair. The characters were really well developed for me, and I cared for them, and I was rooting for them. I was annoyed at them, and I became really invested. And there were just some moments that felt like a bit of a stab in the back, and then it twisted, and then it happens all again, and it's just like, it has to be 5 stars despite the pain. It was just very good. Then I read Lord of the Flies, but the graphic novel adaptation. So it was originally written by William Golding, but this graphic novel adaptation was done by Aime de Jongh. I watched the movie, but I haven't read the OG book. So there's a bunch of kids stranded on an island. Everything goes to shit, basically. I'm sure most people are aware of the general premise of Lord of the Flies. I do love a graphic novel adaptation. Do not let anyone tell you that graphic novels are not a valid form of reading. I really enjoyed this one. I love the artwork. I wish I could show it to you. I do still have it. I couldn't find it. I have no idea where it's gone. I've put it on the wrong shelf somewhere, and it is missing. And because I haven't read the OG book, I'm obviously rating this as a standalone based on the artwork and the detail of the story, but I can't rate it based on how good of an adaptation it is. But for me, it was a really good standalone. It had the right level of detail, more than the movie, but obviously likely much less than the book. And I gave it 4 stars because I also really love the artwork. Then we had Sunrise on the Reaping, which I just think is a stunning book. Not folio, just like the standard hardback edition. Just very pretty. I am a sucker for a pretty book. 3 words. Made me cry. It's the second prequel to the original Hunger Games trilogy, and this one follows Haymitch specifically and his Hunger Games. From just before the Reaping to his experience in the games to a little snippet at the end of like flash forwards and things to a nod to the characters that we kind of know and love from the OG series. I loved it. I loved the OG series. This gave me the vibes. You know when you finish a really good series and you're like, god damn it, there's no more? This was more. I really liked it. I know a lot of people haven't, and some people don't like the way that some of the characters we've seen in the original trilogy are worked in here. They feel like it's a bit shoehorned and it's all just a bit like hammy or whatever, but I loved it. I disagree with the negative reviews. The vibes were good, and I personally loved the smorgasbord of familiar characters. I did give it a 5 out of 5. And next up, I read Second Chance Convenience Store by Kim Ho-yeon. Probably the smallest and one of the prettiest books that I read all year. Like, look at that cover. If you need a reason to buy this, I feel like you can judge this book by its cover and just go ahead and get it. This is the big thing that drew me to this. this. 3 words: cozy, poignant, simple. The owner of a convenience store offers a man who does a kind deed for her a second chance. The guy was in a difficult situation and he helped her out and she helped him back in return, and it's just a really cute, cozy book about how deeds of kindness can carry forward. And it just slipped out the cover. I was surprised by how much I liked this one because, in all honesty, nothing really happened. It's a very nothingy book. It's a vibes book, really. With it does have a message, but it just feels quite calm. I really don't mean that in a shady way. I think I read a lot of fast-paced apocalypse mystery books. That's the kind of vibe I'm used to, heavy books or scary books. And this book was just, it had its moments. It did have little moments that made me tear up, but it was just a cozy vibe story. I do really love the message of sometimes just not being a dick to people can make such a huge difference, not just to you and not just to them. And I did give it 5 for the vibes. I know I said the Second Chance Convenience Store was one of the prettiest books I read all year, but this next one is the most stunning. The Lost World by Michael Crichton. Look at that. This is another folio edition. Got a map of the island, and all the folio books come in a sleeve. I've just been taking them out before showing you because most of them don't have much on, but this one is I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of designed to look like a reptile skin or something. It's really cool. I have the Jurassic Park one as well, which is just down there, and it's also similar vibes, but it's got a brown sleeve. Anyway, I love dinosaurs. That's my 3 words. So it's 6 years after the original Jurassic Park book was set, and for some reason, people, yet again, put themselves on an island with dinosaurs that are going to kill them. I mean, what do I say about this book? It's dinosaurs. Of course I loved it. The second book is so much better than the second movie, so if you are a fan of the films and you love the storyline and you like dinosaurs and you like reading, then I really would recommend giving these books a go because they are much, much better and much richer than the movies. The movies are still great, but the books are better. I like the commentary on greed and arrogance and the unpredictability of nature and the world. Be greedy, get eaten by a T-Rex. That's basically it. I feel like the book was more about these themes and about people's behavior and actions rather than actually dinosaurs, but it was telling the story of those themes and actions through dinosaurs, which I love. But there's still enough dinosaurs eating bad guys to quench that kind of the bloodlust, if that's what you're into from a dinosaur book. 5 out of 5. Next up we have Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. Another stunning book, by the way. The Shabba wanted a copy, so I got her this for her birthday last year, I think, or maybe Christmas 24. But 3 words for this book? Nearly didn't finish. We've all heard of Wicked, right? Big phenomenon.
Toss.
Well, it's the reimagined backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West and questioning who is truly evil. It's super dark, sometimes pretty gory, a bit spicy, and a blatant call-out of authoritarian regime. Loved the blatant political call-outs. Basically hated everything else. I don't mind dark and I don't mind gore. There was just something about this book that didn't click with me. It was such a struggle to finish it, and I think if it hadn't been Wicked and I hadn't wanted to talk about the experience of reading the book and the comparisons to the movie franchise, I maybe wouldn't have finished it. I couldn't gel with the writing. I didn't like any of the characters, but in a bad way, not in I love to hate read about these characters, just I hate reading about these characters. It honestly was a struggle bus and a half to finish, and I think this slowed down my I blame this for not hitting my target note, but it did slow down my reading progress the latter end of the year because I think it took me about a month to finish. I really felt like it was never going to end. It is also nothing like the movie. Very, very 18 plus for multiple different reasons. So you have been warned, don't buy a copy of the book for your kid that loved the movies, even though for some bizarre reason they are marketing the book with the front cover from the movies. The movies are PG, the book is definitely 18 plus. It would be very inappropriate to give this to a child. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I feel bad, I just really didn't like it. Oh, and then of the first audiobook of the year, We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, the same guy who wrote Thursday Murder Club, which is up here. I don't listen to a huge amount of audiobooks, but Shabba and I have started playing them in the car on long drives, and this was the first one that we finished. It took us quite a lot of the year to actually get through it, and my 3 words would be a solid mystery. So this one is about a retired police officer and his security daughter-in-law. They basically get messed up in a big conspiracy and a bunch of murder, as you would expect from the title. I enjoyed it, but not as much as Thursday Murder Club. I really wanted to know what was happening, and I felt really engaged with the characters and the general story storyline. It was enjoyable. I also love the audiobook version of this. I really enjoyed the reading, but I wasn't desperate to keep listening. I found it quite easy at the end of the journey just to like switch it off wherever it stopped when we parked up. It wasn't a frantic page turner, but it was still very pleasant. 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, next up we have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book, full of trauma, those are my 3 words. It's over 700 pages of pure misery about 4 friends in New York. It's miserable. And it's about one friend in particular who has been through some of the most atrocious shit you could imagine. And the book is basically about how that impacts throughout his adult life and how it impacts those around him as well. I both loved and hated this book, and I am remaining firmly on the fence. I found it beautifully written, devastatingly sad. It made me feel things very deeply, and I got really attached to the characters. Oh my god. I don't even want to think about it. At the same time, there were some pretty dodgy tropes, and it was just a never-ending onslaught of trauma after trauma after trauma, which in the end just felt like they were being used as ways to describe how certain behaviours had occurred. And I get it, and it's not saying that some people can't experience that level of trauma. It's just, it was a lot. And I'm honestly stuck between a 1 and a 5 star because this book does not deserve mediocrity, because it is not a mediocre book. It is beautiful. It really is. And there's so much about it that deserves 5 stars, and then there's a bunch of stuff that deserves a 1 star to me, but it's not a 3-star book. I am sitting on the fence quite a bit with it. The splinters are deep. Yeah, it was amazing, and I can't decide if it was more amazingly amazing or amazingly bad. But in the end, I did kind of give it 5 stars. That's what I rated it as officially. I felt bad giving it anything but that, and I don't know why. I went from one of the longest books I read all year to one of the shortest. I feel like I needed a bit of reprieve on pages, but this was also kind of sad. It's Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which I believe has recently been turned into a film with Cillian Murphy. Tiny but powerful. It's set in a small Irish town in the 1980s, and it's about a local man finding out the secrets of what happens in the Magdalene laundries to unwed mothers. Spoiler, horrible things happen. Smallest book I've read as an adult. It was more like a pamphlet than a book. So small it felt more like a footnote rather than a whole book. The font is the biggest thing about this. Like, for such a short book, the font is big as well. It shook me that there was an entire story in here. It's the book equivalent of when you have to sit on your suitcase to make sure it shuts because you've jam-packed so much in there, but you get a shocking amount in a tiny little case, and that is what this is. You get the shockingly beautiful story that's deep. It was very impactful despite its size, and I thought that it was beautifully written, and I enjoyed reading it, but I did feel like a little bit of a backstory on the laundries and the situation for unwed mothers in the 1980s in Ireland would have made the book even more impactful for those who didn't already know. I kind of knew very briefly, I didn't know about the laundry specifically, but I knew kind of top level what happened, and just that being explored a little bit more generally as a setup to the book or an explanation at the end or something would have been really, really useful, and I think would have made the book hit harder for me as somebody who knew very, very little. And it did mean that there was a couple bits that didn't make sense, but overall I loved it and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is the final in the trilogy for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. 3 words. Unnecessarily frustratingly messy. Pip is back with PTSD and about to leave for university, but she decides to focus on solving another cold case until something comes very close to home for her and all kinds of chaos ensues. And I mean chaos. It's like if the Tasmanian Devil was a book. But I didn't hate it. I did actually kind of enjoy reading it, although no, actually I listened to it. This was my second audiobook of the year. But it was my least favourite in the series. It just felt very messy, and to me it created a very left field, unexpected ending for the characters. And there was some truly diabolical decision making going on that had me saying out loud, what the hell are you doing right now? It's like if Man vs. Bee was a murder mystery book. If you haven't seen Man vs. Bee, is Rowan Atkinson, the guy who's Mr. Bean, and he is in this very, very fancy house and a bee gets in, and instead of just dealing with the bee in a very simple, typical way that most people deal with a bee, he ends up causing so much chaos trying to get rid of this tiny bee because one thing leads to another.
Of course, a bee. Blame it on a bee.
I gave it 3 out of 5. We're getting very close to the end, and it's time for my last folio of the year, which was Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Look at this. What a stunning little pussycat. Great drawings. Hold on, let me find you a good one. This is the kind of vibe. Very much enjoyed the drawings. 3 words for Pet Sematary. Creepy yet boring? Oh. A family moves house and ends up living on a property that has a pet cemetery on it. And other spooky things. Because checking the land for, I don't know, creepy burial sites just didn't come into their realm of thought for some reason. I would check. This was the first Stephen King book that I finished. I started Needful Things a long time ago, but couldn't get past the first 100 pages. I just found it too slow. And I kind of got the same vibe from Pet Sematary, but I liked it a lot more. I did finish it. It was really long and really drawn out, and I almost want a refund. Almost, but not quite. I will forgive it because it's beautiful. I was promised terror, fear, heart racing, jumping out of my seat in fright, but I wasn't scared. I'm not just saying that. I read this to read one of the scariest books ever written, and it didn't spook me. I was also bored at times, and it just took way too long to build up. And then when it finally felt like it was going somewhere, the pace slowed right back down again and took me back to Boredom City. There was one thing that surprised me, and I did like the ending, but most of it was just too predictable. There just wasn't enough. Bah! I needed so much more. Not sheep. I didn't mean to bah. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's a big book, by the way. It's huge. Look at the size difference between these 2 books. We're down to our final 3, and we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Another beautiful book. This is the 80th anniversary edition that I got. Not folio, but it's got pretty spine and then the R for Rebecca debossed on the front cover.
Delicious.
A woman marries a man much older than her, old enough to be her father, who she barely knows in order to escape a life that she's not happy with, because that sounds like a sensible thing to do. But everything turns out to be more complicated than she thought. She turns out to be more complicated, and there's a lot of assumptions, not all of them correct, and people are very frustrating. I love this book, despite hating every single major character in it, which I think is a pretty good accomplishment for a book. Nobody was likeable, but I was totally hooked on the story and how it was going to unravel and what the hell was going on. I had heard so much hype about this book, and I honestly thought it wasn't going to live up to it. I don't know why. I went in with mid expectations, and it blew all of my expectations out of the water. I honestly loved it, and I would read it again. When I said I was reading it, I actually got a bunch of DMs from people who were like, I have read this book so many times. I wish I could have the experience of reading it for the first time over again. And, this is a book I go back to time and time again. I'm like, really? But I get it. The only thing I would do is probably skip over the really long-winded descriptions of plants. They did not grip me. But other than that, fantastic. Full house, 5 out of 5 stars. The penultimate book I read last year was Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. 3 words for Tender is the Flesh. Absolutely disgusting. It's a dystopian world where all the animals have been killed because they got some virus that will kill humans if you eat them or get bitten or scratched by them. So instead of being vegan, humans become cannibals. The whole world decides to breed and slaughter humans for meat when they can no longer do that to pigs and cows and sheep and chickens. I found it a decent enough read, and there were some bits that were really good, and the ending will stay with me for a really long time. That shook me. But overall, I just found it really frustrating. I wanted more depth. I wanted more answers. I wanted more to it than just very graphic descriptions of the slaughtering of humans. Why were they cannibals and not vegan? I honestly took a whole star rating away just for that reason. I needed a reason why they couldn't be vegan. I needed some strong ass, this is the propaganda that was sold to people as to why they needed to become cannibals. And then what was this mysterious virus that made animals dangerous? It was kind of brushed over a couple of times. It just all had to die. But what happened to people if they ate animals? And then, isn't it bad to eat other humans? Obviously, it's very morally bad, but isn't it also health-wise not good? And maybe this is fake news, but I remember watching the Book of Eli, and the cannibals in that had the shakes, and you could tell. Is that not a thing? Is that just fake? I just feel like it's not good for humans to eat other humans. Anyway, there was just something lacking. It felt too gore-focused, too shock factor focused, without having the depth of why, and more of an exploration into society. Maybe that was the point, but it didn't click with me. But I didn't hate it, so I gave it 3 stars. And the last book I read last year was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. 3 words. Not much happened. The blurb gave me Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt vibes, and if you haven't watched that, it's about a bunch of women who are kept in an underground bunker.
Unbreakable, they alive, damn it.
And this is about a bunch of women who are kept captive underground with no memory of how, why, or when they were put there. And the youngest of them narrates the book and is ultimately the key to their escape and blah, blah, blah. For me, this book promised more than it delivered, and I had higher expectations of this book than what it delivered. Maybe I just didn't understand it, but something did not click for me. It felt too empty. It felt like finding your favourite packet of biscuits in the cupboard, only to open it and there to just be half a biscuit left. It's you're not utterly disappointed and upset, set, but it's not quite what you were after. It leaves you feeling unsatisfied. You wanted 2 biscuits. I need to know more. I need a resolution. I need something. I need at least one question answered, please. And maybe, again, that's the point of this book and I just didn't get it, and I totally accept that. But if that's the point of the book, I still don't enjoy it. That's not what I want in a book. I also want to connect to the narrator. Even if I hate them, I want to feel something. But the narrator, and, you know, I think this was probably a symptom of being raised in basically captivity with no influence of the outside world, no physical touch or anything from when they were a very young child. I get it. But I felt nothing to connect to with the narrator. It was just a lot of emptiness of a book for me. So I gave it 3 stars. Hold up, what's that? I do believe it is time for the first of hopefully many yearly Jamie Raines Book Awards. Woo! The bit you've all been waiting for, and I feel like I should be in some sparkly tux with a microphone. Welcome! Maybe next year, but you'll have to do with the burgundy jumper for this year. And first up is the book that made me cry, and the 2 nominees are Old Sister by Jodie Chapman and A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And the winner is, hold for some applause, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This one may have been very obvious because I've already made a video on this channel called The Saddest Book Ever Written, and I talked about how much it made me cry. We're talking multiple rounds of sobbing. A worthy winner, but is it a prize you want? I will let you decide. Next up, we have the biggest surprise of the year, and I mean this in a positive way. Not a bad surprise, a very, very good surprise. Like finding 3 biscuits left in your packet. And the winner is... This is my attempt at a drum roll. Loverbirds by Leon Egan. And this isn't at all a comment on me being surprised that the book was actually good, by the way. It was just a surprise that I personally clicked with it as much as I did and enjoyed it as much as I did, because, like I said, just not the type of book I would normally go for, but I ended up really enjoying it. I was actually recommended to read it by my agent because of a book that I'm working on at the minute, and I was just really pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed something that I wouldn't normally pick up, and it's definitely encouraged me to reach out and try different books. Like, I've got some sci-fi ones behind me here that I would never normally give a go, and I was like, maybe I should. So maybe this is your sign for in 2026 to pick up that book or genre of book that you wouldn't normally go for. If it doesn't go well though, don't sue me, you didn't get the advice here. Moving swiftly on, the award for the biggest disappointment of the year, and please, a reminder, don't come at me if these are your favourite books. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying the books themselves are objectively bad, I'm just saying I did not like them. They are not my cup of masala chai. And this award, with regret, does go to Wicked by Gregory Maguire. I love the movie, both of them, movies and the theatre show. I heard the book was a darker, more politically driven version, and I think if that's all it had been, I would have loved it. I just had a total hatred towards it for some reason, just the characters and the way it was written. I just struggled so much. And I do go into more detail about the book in a video I did specifically on it, so if you want to go check it out and hear more of my thoughts, then you can go watch that one if you would like to. And finally, my award for my favourite read of 2025, and I'm going to do 5 nominees because this was a difficult one to pick, and there's just several that I want to shout out as some of my top tier books of the year. So in no particular order, here are the nominees. Second Chance Convenience Store by Kim Ho-yeon, for all its cozy vibes, beautiful messaging, and of course, this stunning front cover. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, for taking me back to Pan Am. Haymitch's backstory is one to be sobbed over, and I loved learning the backstory of some of the characters from the OG trilogy and just more about the world. Then we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, for having all the twists and turns of a marshmallow flump and showing that some classics really do live up to their reputation. Then Old Sister by Jodie Chapman, 2 nominations in one night. I really did like this book even if it left me with an empty tissue box. And our final nomination for the category is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally, for all its thrills, chills, and I can't think of something else that rhymes with thrills and chills, for its shocking plot twist, okay? And the winner of my best read of 2025 is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. Honestly, I just feel like it's the one that when I would describe it, I get the most passionate about it, and I would recommend it the hardest to read to people who like this genre. And I did absolutely kind of tell a teeny weeny little tiny fib to you. I did give those nominations in the order that I enjoyed them in. They were my top 5 from 5th to 1st. And that is a wrap on my 2025 reading journey. This has been a mammoth of a video. Thank you so much for watching. Did any of these books get on your reading list? Have you read any of these books? Please, I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear if you're excited to read anything. I want to hear if you've added any of these books based on what I've said, or if you've taken any of these books off. laugh based on what I said. I have set myself the same target that I did last year for this year, so 50 books, but if I don't hit it, it's okay. It's just a general thing to aim for, and I'm already on 2. I wish you all the best with your reading goals, but remember, it's not about how much you read or what you read, it's about enjoying the reading process and having fun with it, so make sure that is always your top priority. I will catch you next Tuesday with another video, but for now, thank you for watching, much love, I'll see you in the next chapter, bye!